All right, so why it is impossible to understand someone in the language you're learning and how to get better. I completely understand if you are trying to learn a language right now, and then when you go to listen to someone, or maybe read something as well, but mostly listen to someone in a foreign language, you just have literally no idea what's going on. You can maybe pick out a few words, but it still sounds completely unfamiliar. And it's really, really frustrating because you're actually practicing consistently, you're trying really hard, and you still can't understand it. So my promise by the end of this video is that you won't just be able to understand the reason behind why you're not understanding that no one really talks about, but I'm also going to explain how you can fix this problem and become better so that you don't have to deal with this problem anymore, because it's really frustrating. And stick around until the end because I'm also going to tell you a secret on how getting better actually works. Most people don't understand how to get better at language learning listening. They just grind away at it, which can help, but they don't actually understand the science behind it, which I'm going to give you to make you better than 99% of language learners. So definitely hit the subscribe button and let's go. So here is the problem, which is actually the symptom of a bigger problem. But here's probably what you're going through right now. This is you listen to something / someone in Spanish or any language, just swap Spanish for whatever language you're learning, and you don't understand. It's frustrating. This is basically what's going on. The real problem, which is what's actually happening, is this. So here is you are trying to understand. Here's basically success / understanding on the other end of the arrow. This is you attempting to listen, at the other end is success, and something's actually blocking you from success. So it's not that you just don't understand what's going on. There is something actively stopping you from understanding / going on. And that is because the thing you're listening to, whether it's a video or a person speaking, like for example, you're listening like a native speaker is talking to you, that thing is at a higher level than you. You can see here that I put that thing is greater than you. The level of advancedness that personal thing that you're listening to is higher than your skill at listening. The difficulty is higher than your skill. And when the difficulty is higher than skill, what happens is you don't understand. If they were equal, or if you were more skilled than the text, for example, in your native language, you read a children's book, obviously your ability in your native language is much higher than the ability that children's book is written at. You can completely understand it. But the opposite is true here, and that you're not as good as what you're listening to. And what that results in is you don't understand what's going on. And then, of course, you get all the emotions like frustration. You feel like you're wasting your time. You want to give up. It's just not good. So this is the real problem. The thing is at a greater level than you. So now that we've identified what is actually going on, the thing that is actually stopping you from understanding the text and causing a bunch of frustration, we can try and fix it. So there are basically two ways to understand more of what you're hearing. You can either listen to less advanced things, or you can increase your skills. Listening is difficult. I wouldn't, the number one thing here, which is listen to less advanced things, I wouldn't recommend you just do that because obviously you're not going to get anywhere. I'm just giving you both of the options. If you just listen to things that you completely understand, you are obviously not going to make that much progress simply because you need to encounter things you don't understand to improve and get better. If the only things you listen to are things you completely understand, you're not really learning any new words and that kind of thing. Obviously, if it's ridiculously advanced, it's ridiculously fast, you can take a step back, and even if you're using subtitles, it's still impossible to understand. That's way too hard. You should take a step back. However, I would overall recommend increasing your skills is the thing we're here to do, because we're here to learn a language. And I just want you to understand this before I actually teach you how to increase your skills in listening. Understand the level of understanding at a native speaking level is extremely high. So if you're listening to native speakers have a native speaker conversation, as you might in English or whatever your native language is, that's a very, very high level of speaking and listening, and it's going to be extremely difficult to understand even with subtitles. It would take months to actually get parts of it, and that it would probably take years to be able to understand it reasonably well. So I don't think that, people who speak 20 languages on social media, that's normal, and that you need to be able to understand stuff immediately. They're either lying or they're at a very high level. So yeah, now let's talk about how to actually increase your skills. So if we want to improve our listening skills in a foreign language, the first thing we need to understand, and this is the most important thing, do not skip this, is that listening is a skill. Listening is a skill, right? Don't have a fixed mindset. A lot of people have a really, really fixed mindset where they don't connect the fact that they need to put in effort to improve. They don't connect those two things together. And so they basically get frustrated because they don't actually believe there's anything they can really do to improve. Because listening is a skill, we can improve it and we can get better. And there will come a time in the future where you will look back and you will not understand how you didn't understand stuff because you've just become better at it. I know that's the case in Italian, and that is becoming the case in Russian. When I look back and I see a sentence like a compound sentence, I find it hard to switch languages while I'm in the middle of talking. But yeah, if I see something that I didn't used to understand, it's weird now because I understand it. So what I want you to introduce you to is the words popping out principle. I'll explain to you what I mean. When you're listening in a foreign language, right, and you say you don't understand the sentence that's being said, if they say the word the, for example, or they say the word or and, or hello, or a simple word that you might know, even though you don't understand the sentence, that one word would pop out to you. Or if they mention someone's name or like a place, if they're saying like, oh, I'm going to New York or I'm going to America or whatever, in that language, the word America would like pop out to you, or whatever your country is, because you just know that word. It's like not a word that belongs in that language. The reason those words pop out to you is because of the connections you've developed in your brain. That's why in English, for example, or when someone's speaking to you in your native language, even though you understand all the words, when someone says your name, even if you're not listening, that one word pops out to you. That's why if you're not listening to people chatting in the background and someone mentions your name, that actually pops out to you even though you weren't paying attention. And that's what I mean by the words popping out principle. So what I want you to understand is that when we become better at a foreign language, we're actually moving towards this stage of the words popping out principle, where words are just going to make sense without you having to think about them. So when someone's talking, when I'm talking to you right now, you understand every single word I'm saying, because, presumably because you are able to speak English fluently. So you don't have to try and translate words I'm saying. You hear them and they automatically make sense together. That isn't the case in the language you're learning because you haven't built those connections yet. You haven't been exposed to those words enough. And over time, as we do the things which I'm about to recommend to you, those words will simply pop out just like the words I'm using right now. And all of them will make sense. And it won't be the case that some words like the pop out and you don't understand everything else. The sentence will simply make sense as I'm talking to you now. So the way your brain needs to get, the way your brain, the way you get better at listening and improve your listening skills is by knowing more words. You need to improve your listening speed, and you need to be able to decipher like accents and like kind of weird phrasing and that, like unfamiliar phrasing and that kind of thing. Those are the only three things we actually need to do to really become better at listening. I can't really think of anything else. If anyone can comment it in the description, I really had to think about it, and I don't think there is anything else. So here's what we need to do to improve at those things. 1, learn more words. So obviously, if someone's using a bunch of words that you don't know, you need to actually learn those words, or else you're not going to understand what they're saying. So one thing I would recommend is especially learn subject-specific vocab. If you learn a bunch of general words, or you learn a bunch of very specific words about chiropractic, for example, and then you listen to people talking about music, those words have nothing in common. Like you'll either understand the very basic words when they're used, like the word the, or you'll only understand the chiropractic words, and that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. So it'll almost be like you don't understand anything, even though you have actually learnt a bunch of really complicated words. So what I want you to do is learn words that are subject specific. So for example, it could be to do with fitness, for example, the gym, and then you listen to people talking about the gym and you actually understand a lot of the words they're using. Even if you're a bit slow, even if you need subtitles, you can actually understand the words they're using. You're familiar with those words because you've learnt a bunch of subject-specific vocab. A lot of people will learn random words all over the place, or they'll learn subject-specific words and then they'll listen, like they'll use flashcards to learn a type of words, and they won't actually listen to people talking about that stuff. They'll listen to something completely foreign, completely different in the same foreign language, and they'll wonder why they don't understand. It's because you haven't learnt the words. Like, it's because you haven't learnt the words that they are talking about. You idiot. That's the reason why. You need to understand, you need to learn the words that they're actually using. So what I'd recommend you to do, just to simplify it, number 1, because I've kind of gone on a bit of a spiel, is learn some subject-specific words. You could learn 10, 20, 30 words about the gym, and then try and find an easy video or a vlog with subtitles of people speaking about it, talking about stuff to do with that. You can even read about it, but I'll keep it on listening, and you will find you actually are able to pick out words. Those words will start popping out to you, just like simple words, and then of course the more you listen to it, the less they actually pop out to you. You might actually be at a level where when someone says the word the, like il, for example, in Italian, there's also a bunch of other ways. Someone's going to comment and say, oh, there's 6, 7 ways of saying the. I freaking know, alright? I'm just giving one example. Someone might say the word the, and it doesn't even really pop out to you. You just understand it's the word the. That will eventually happen when you build those connections and you're exposed to those words enough. So that's number 1, learn more words, especially subject-specific vocab. Number 2 is consistent listening. So not only, obviously, if we know words, but people are talking very fast, our brain is kind of slow in the foreign language, and it doesn't have time to actually understand what those things mean. So what we need to do is practice consistent listening, and especially on subject-specific vocab. Again, you could set, like, for example, 1 week to just listen to things on this topic once you're learning words about that topic. But basically listening consistently, so recommend listening to something every single day, even if it's like 5 minutes long, and just have a bit of patience and a growth mindset, because listening is incredibly difficult, even with subtitles, even when you understand the words, because it's just unfamiliar, and it's going to take hundreds of hours to become good at it, probably thousands of hours to become pretty good at it and be able to understand most of what you're hearing. But yeah, you can use subtitles as a crutch. That's what I've got written as number 3. You can use transcripts as well. You can read the transcript while you're listening. You can use them to learn unknown words. But overall, if you just consistently listen to things and you have that growth mindset that you are becoming better every time, you're actually forming new neural connections. And if you do all of these things together, you will actually learn those words and become a better listener. And I'd also recommend you practice speaking as well as listening. This really does help. Even if you don't have a native speaker to talk to, you can just record yourself and listen back to it. It does actually help when you see yourself doing it. I don't actually fully know why, but it really does just help with understanding stuff. So I'd highly recommend that as well. Now, the secret that I was going to tell you about that I mentioned at the start of this video. So when we're listening in English or whatever your native language is, the words aren't kind of like the last level. When you hear words, they represent like information or ideas or feelings or something like that. So when I say water, obviously, if I said water in Italian, like acqua, you could tell me, oh yeah, the definition is water, if that's the language you're learning, because it's a fairly easy word. But the definition of water in English can't be water. The water, all of those words, no matter what language they're in, they mean the same one thing. They mean the same idea, which is, it's hard to explain because I'm explaining it in English. But you know what I mean? Like a word represents something. It has some kind of meaning. What you're doing in a foreign language is you're actually translating the foreign language word. So for example, acqua, which means water in Italian, you're translating that to English, so you're translating aqua to water, and then you're understanding what that means, which is, you know what water is. Whereas in your native language, you're going straight from recognizing that word to mean this thing. Can you see how it's a bit of a longer process when you're learning it, when you're listening in a foreign language and you're trying to translate the idea? This is because your brain is weaker and slower when it comes to a foreign language. And so when you hear words, you're actually trying to translate them into English and then understand what the idea is, because your brain is weaker, and also because that's how you've learnt those words through flashcards or whatever. To become stronger at the language, you actually need to start going directly from the foreign language words, so directly from aqua or, forca or whatever the word is, to the idea, rather than go through your native language. And this will happen as you continue to practice listening and become better in a foreign language. As you consistently expose yourself to words, you'll know, just like how we talked about before, when you hear the word the after you've heard it so many times, it doesn't just pop out to you anymore, but you don't even need to translate it, simply because you recognize its meaning on command. You understand it's the word the, and that is what happens over a long period of time. So just understand that is actually how you reach kind of the higher levels of listening in a foreign language. Your goal is to reach the point where you recognize words. They don't just pop out to you, but you actually just recognize words as the information they are, without even having to think about it or translate those words. Because what happens when you are constantly trying to translate words you hear is you actually kind of get stuck, because you're slow thinking about it while more words are being said to you, and that's not what we want. If you are interested in learning more about that, I will have my long-term memory video pop up, and you can check that out. I'll also have it linked in the description. If you are interested in learning a language, I'd highly recommend you check out the Language Learning Accelerator. The price will be going up soon, but it's very, very cheap at the moment, and you'll get to speak to me. I'll actually put you on my channel as well. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. Get in contact with me if you have any questions. Guys, we did just reach 1,000 subscribers, so I'm planning on doing a Q&A. If you want to ask me any questions, go for it. Have a good one, and thank you for watching.